Hi, and welcome to Storytime with Kimberlyn. This is our time to connect, to look into each other's eyes and know that we're not alone. Now, I know that this is very different than sitting next to each other and talking, chatting over a cup of tea or a lovely cup of coffee. Sharing time, energy, and space is always the most precious way to build connection. But sometimes we have to do what we have to do, which is find the ways to connect in a real world. So whether you're here live with me now, or you come back and you find this later, the full version or the actual live version, it's all yoga. It's all about connection. Last week I talked about invitation. And invitation really is the linchpin, the foundation of everything that I do, everything that I teach. Because invitation is where the intention begins. It's where we allow the space for change. We allow the space for sharing and for connection. And without the invitation, there can be no together. But where does that invitation take us? So when we extend an invitation, what we're really saying, perhaps, come here with me. Do this with me. And this to me is home. It's about inviting others to come home.
For me, every invitation is an opportunity to come home. An invitation to belong, to be me.
My favorite invitation is to be invited to someone's home. To be welcomed into their kitchen or their living room, to be embraced in a hug at the door, to be nourished and fed with food and conversation and drink, to play with their pets and their children. There is nothing more tender and intimate. There is no place that makes me feel more connected than sharing time in someone's home. So welcome to my home. Thank you for sharing this time with me. Today's story is about coming home, about finding our way home. And so the first example I want to share with you is actually my childhood memories.
Now, as a child, we would go on long summer vacations. More often than not, they were coordinated with my dad's work, and we would travel the nation coast to coast. Now, there were 7 of us kids, so we traveled in a big yellow van, pulling our house or our pop-up camper. Now, my favorite place to travel was to arrive at my grandparents' ranch in western South Dakota. But we traveled all over the place. But the interesting thing about all of this travel and all of these dirt roads and highways and byways that we traveled on, I could always tell when we were coming home.
So I had a lot of childhood homes. So coming home is kind of a euphemism, even more for me, because I didn't have one home. I had many homes. And it didn't matter really what state that home was in. I could always tell when we were coming home. So imagine that you're kind of sardined into the magic bed. That's what I called it. It's in the back of our family van. We had an extra long, extra tall van. Another story, another time. But in the back of the van, we had these benches and a table. That table would lower and the benches would become a queen size bed. So this bed was kind of the hog pile for the kids. Dad would drive, Mom would navigate, and the kids would pile onto the back bed. So it wasn't always comfortable, but it was better than not sleeping on our forever car rides across country. So no matter what time of day or night, how long the journey had been, if I had just fallen asleep or if I'd been asleep for hours, I could always tell when we were coming home. When we were within probably a couple of miles of the home. No matter which home we were coming to, the Texas home, the Maine home, the California home, wherever, whichever home was home, my body, my spirit could tell when we were approaching home.
That sound, that feeling of the last turn and the sound of the pavement change as the pace of the tires shifted, it didn't matter if I was dead asleep. I would rise at least a little bit to know that home was just around the bend.
I don't know exactly what triggered it, but it only happened when I was coming home, no matter which home, our family home, and it happened when I would arrive at my second home, or my favorite visiting home, my grandparents' ranch in western South Dakota. The feeling was the same, that I was coming home to a place not only that I was loved, but a place that allowed me to be a little more myself. Now, this idea of coming home was particularly powerful in my young adulthood.
Looking for that familiar path, that territory that is coming home. In fact, it encouraged me to quit my job, buy a bicycle. Now, I did train for about 6 months, but then I embarked on a 4-month-long cross-country bike tour. I had tons of people ask me, what are you doing? Where are you going? Blah, 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 blah. The truth was for me is that I was looking for home. I was looking for not just a physical home, but an emotional home, someplace where I could truly belong. And so this meant a shift from fitting in to belonging.
I quit my job and sold most of my belongings and bought a bike. This is about 5,000 miles from coast to coast, fully self-contained, meaning I carried my tent and made my food and traveled the highways and the byways from the West Coast to the East Coast. And when I got to the East Coast, I didn't know where I was going next, so I traveled down the East Coast to Asheville, North Carolina.
So for me, this cross-country bike trip really was kind of the transition to my adulthood, to accept and embrace who I was and search for a community or a place or a home.
That whole journey was completely focused on cultivating a familiarity, about seeking to find a home where I could truly belong and not just fit in. I'd been fitting in my whole life, doing tasks and jobs that needed to be done, and I was capable of doing and willing to do, but they weren't necessarily my life's work. They weren't necessarily things that were of my best match of skills and strengths. But in finding a home, what I was looking for was a place that I could really authentically contribute my skills and talents and knowledge and wisdom, and let that be a completion of a circle, not just filling in the gaps, not just providing perhaps life support to an organization that might otherwise flounder. I want to just read from Brene Brown. She's one of my favorite authors, favorite teachers, and this is her Braving the Wilderness, subtitled A Quest for True Belonging and the Courage to Stand Alone. She defined belonging in this way. Belonging is the innate human desire to be part of something larger than us. Because this yearning is so primal, we often try to acquire it by fitting in and by seeking approval, which are not only hollow substitutes for belonging, but are often barriers to it. Because true belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect self to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. Our level of self-acceptance, our level of self-love is a prerequisite to our level of authentic connection. I both love that truth and hate that truth.
To accept and embrace who I was and search for a community or a place or a home that loved me, that loved what I offered as much as I wanted to love myself. Now, to be completely transparent, to be completely vulnerable, the journey to love myself is an ongoing, I want to say struggle, but it's not quite that anymore. The journey to love myself is an ongoing practice of choosing to accept my imperfections, to share the raw edges with those whom I can trust, and to continue practicing being my best self.
My journey, my practice of loving myself continues, but it continues to progress in a healthy way because of the connection, the community, the circle that I have in my home. Yes, with my husband, my Peter, but also with the circle of colleagues, of friends, of clients whom hold each other in this authentic living. Now, at the end of that journey, as corny as it may sound, I found my home. But it wasn't where I thought it should be. It wasn't where I wanted it to be. It wasn't even where I had planned it to be. In fact, it was this tiny little apartment in Danbury, Connecticut, which was really my sister's apartment, and it was only by her generosity, kindness, love, patience that she invited me to move in temporarily, but to share this tiny space and begin again as I shifted my career and my life and my being. My home was not this Danbury apartment. No, my home was this human being, this beautiful, fabulous person that I met. And on our second date, we were engaged to be married. Now, he is my husband today, 20 years later, and I love him even more today. But what was so beautiful about that was the unexpectedness of finding him after I'd been searching literally 5,000 miles to find home, and to find it embodied in another human, someone who could not only hold me physically, but encourage me emotionally and challenge me intellectually. This, Peter, is my home. And it's because of that home that I have with Peter that I'm able to do the work that I do in my community.
So now, as a white-haired, maturing adult, desperate to hang on to my youth and my playfulness of childhood, my work is about creating space and holding space for you and for me and for all of us to come home, to find the place of belonging, not just fitting in, not just filling in the gaps and the holes of what tasks need to be done or even what roles need to be filled, but more importantly, cultivating a circle of connection, of authentic and vulnerable connection that allows us to be seen and to see each other. This is the circle that makes us human, the circle that nurtures our spirit. That circle might just be you and me right here, right now, and that is enough, my friend, because it's a beginning, and every breath is an invitation to begin again. This principle of cultivating a circle, I call it transparent alignment. It's getting clear with who I want to be, who I am in my own experience, in my own identity, and then sharing that consciously with others, allowing them to peek into my heart, into my spirit, to even participate in this unfolding, to participate in my becoming as they are a trustworthy mirror to who I am. Now, the real beauty of the circle comes when I can be that same reflection or that same remembering for those in my circle. And as I get clearer and clearer about who I am, so too does my circle. So too do those who stand with me know more clearly who I am, and as a result, more clearly who they are. This is transparent alignment, and it really is based on the practices of authentic connection, both to ourselves and to each other. It's rooted in yoga philosophy, and I share it in a program that I call the Inspired Living Program. There's a couple of different layers, in which case our boot camp is coming up here at the beginning of the new year. It's a great way to make space to build a circle, to find your own center, and to live a life of passion and purpose.
I know the importance of coming home. I know the value of being in a space that feels safe and authentic. And that is where I invite you to join me in time and space, in intention and in energy, to come home. Here is your invitation to come home to your authentic true self, to find a path and walk it together so that we can share this community. We can be a circle of support. I call this transparent alignment. I call this way of living, way of being, transparent alignment. And it's based on the principles of yoga and a very simple 3-step strategy of intention, attention, and action. Now I teach this strategy. This is my life's work, is teaching how to show up for your life authentically, vulnerably, so that you can have an inspired life. And this program I call the Inspired Living Boot Camp. The crash course or the immersion program is a 6-week program done just like this, face-to-face, over the magic of the internet, in which case I share with you the teachings, the stories, and together we practice until the skills and the tools and the resources are more available to our daily living. So this invitation today to come home is also an invitation to join me in a special circle, the Inspired Living Circle. If you'd like to learn more, please join me. You can find me at lifesworkyoga.com. You include lifesworkyoga.com/free/ you'll enroll in my newsletter. And not only that, you'll receive 3 free mini videos to help you breathe deeply, move freely, labor lovingly, and live vibrantly. These are the secrets of an inspired life. These are the practices that help us to authentically connect and live in community. Thank you so much for coming into my home to share this time, this story time.
That's my story. I want you to know the truth of being your authentic self. I want you to know the beauty of belonging and to feel the love of true and authentic connection. So may you continue your journey to find ways to connect, to invite others to come home. And may you know that comfort of coming home, to be in your body, your breath, and your mind, so that you may breathe deeply, move freely, labor lovingly, so that you may live vibrantly. Namaste, friends. Have a great day. See you next Tuesday for more story time.